joining in with us. It may not be morning where everyone is, but good morning. My name is Heather Stewart. I'm one of the business development managers here at Carolina Distance Learning. We just want to remind you, you'll see down in the chat area that if you would like to submit any questions, that is the place to do it. And we'll certainly make that a little more the focus once we get to that area. We'd like to just talk to you a little bit about what we offer in the way of online lab kits. And then certainly we want to take some of your questions. I have been with Carolina Distance Learning for about almost 2 years now. I was in higher ed administration for a long time. And so joining Carolina Distance Learning and being able to supply students with these kits is definitely where our passion lies. So Carolina Distance Learning is actually a division within Carolina Biological, which some of you may be familiar with or we're not. But Carolina Biological Supply Company has been supplying science really to the world for almost 100 years. So it's very exciting that we at Carolina Distance Learning can be a department within. So just to set the stage there. Very excited to introduce to you our newest member of the team. Her name is Kathy Wheeler, and she's one of our distance learning specialists. And we're going to talk a little bit about her prior experiences and then certainly what she brings to our team, which is very exciting. So would you like to say hello?
Yes, hi. Well, I've been with Carolina for 2 months now. So before that, I was teaching. I've been adjunct for a while, teaching biology and environmental science. I taught full-time at a community college here in North Carolina for 4 years, and I've also taught at community colleges in Florida as well. I have been involved in science education for about 15 years now. Before that, I was mostly doing research on fish and marine biology. And before that, I was in grad school, still working on fish.
Excellent. Most exciting too is that, like many of you, you already may be teaching science online, and you may be at a place where you're considering what to do next in terms of providing the lab portion of the course. Some of you might be doing a hybrid. Some of you might actually be using a kit. And we're lucky enough to have Kathy on our team because she has actually used one of the Carolina kits within her courses.
So yes, I taught online at least one course every single semester that, since probably 2015.
Excellent, excellent. And Kathy, you have used one of the Carolina kits. Yes. that was developed. So we're sort of going to talk through that process a little bit. So just to get started, how many years have you taught with an actual kit that's been sent home to students?
With an actual kit, it's been about 4 years that I've taught.
Okay.
And I think like probably every instructor who's never taught online, especially a science course, I thought that I was not sure that students could do the lab by themselves in their homes. So it was really nice to find the Carolina kits. They're already pre-made, and they're reliable. They've been tested, so I know they're going to work at my student's house.
Yeah, and it sounds like you already knew the Carolina Biological brand.
Yes.
And the quality that is provided by going through us. So then it just made sense to, in the higher ed landscape, put a kit together.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, excellent, excellent. So in terms of development, we'll sort of start at the beginning. In your experiences at the institutions that you had a chance to work at, can you talk a little bit about whether you directly were involved in the development, or was it a collaborative decision, or did someone else make the decision and say, you're doing this?
It was decided that we were going to teach, we were going to offer online versions of at least, starting with the Bio 111, which is the general biology 1 for majors, and then working our way into the general biology 2 for majors. And they said, we're doing this. You two are going to develop Bio 111. You two are going to develop Bio 112. And so we were assigned to it, but we also work collaboratively with one or more people as needed. So getting everything together, finding our own, finding what curriculum to use so we could go textbook free, or at least less cost textbook, and then deciding how to work labs. And actually, first we thought, well, we can just throw a bunch of things in a kit for the students and develop our own labs. And then we realized that we only had 3 months to work in, and we could not develop and test labs and write manuals for all of them in that time. And then we learned that Carolina Distance Learning, which is part of Carolina Biological, already had investigations set up with a lot of the common investigations that you see in biology labs. And the manuals are already written, and there's already supplementary information if you want to take it a step further. There are ideas for extra videos. There are pre-lab questions that students can answer, ideas for discussion topics that can build on the lab.
Okay, and so you touched on sort of the next question I was going to ask, but diving a little bit deeper into that, and working with, once you figured out that you were going to engage Carolina Distance Learning, how did you find that process to work in terms of level of help, I guess, because it sounded like your team already had an idea about what it might look like. But can you talk a little bit about the engagement between Carolina and the development of the lab?
Well, with us at our school, we were lucky enough to have a lab coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
So we told the lab coordinator what we wanted, and then he actually engaged with Carolina. I think it was pretty helpful because he never had any questions for us.
Excellent.
We told him what we wanted, and he was able to say, oh, well, here it is.
Right.
Pretty easy.
So that is one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum are the folks that are just diving into this, and they're just getting started, and then they don't have the lab coordinator, and they might be doing it on their own. So can you talk a little bit about the support that we provide, a faculty member that would come to us and say, hey, here's my syllabus. What do I do next?
So yeah, that's what I'm doing. So that's one of my main roles now. If somebody is supposed to teach online and they've never taught it before, or maybe they're used to teaching a course and now they have to teach a new course and they have to do it online, that's what I can help with. You can send me a syllabus of something that Instructor has used before, or you can just tell me, these are labs that I think would be helpful, or the labs that I've done before in a face-to-face class. And I can help sort of guide to specific investigations, and help you put something together.
And so discussing this, can you talk a little bit about the idea of customizing it to the particular course, and how does that process work?
So there are a number of labs, and so I know that people might teach things differently or might put an emphasis on different topics within a subject. And so it's sort of like picking and choosing at a grocery store. You have a certain list, you have all the things that you like to have, and we can work within that list. You can then, it's sort of modular, you can take pieces of it out or you can add pieces. I was helping someone yesterday who had investigations from 3 different subjects. So that class encompassed geology, physics, and environmental science. And so they needed labs from many different subject lines, and we were able to help them. It was a little complicated.
Excellent. One other thing to think about in terms of the customization, I think you'll agree with me also, is many times faculty and departments are with, they have a budget
Yes.
that they need to stay within. I think that the customization piece of that allows for departments and faculty to be able to stay within that budget, and we're able to make suggestions when we know up front what that budget might look like.
Right. And so in some cases we might decide, depending on what the professor really wants to focus on, we might replace one or more with a dry lab that we have on the same topic. So like DNA and RNA, you can do the actual extraction, or you can model it with beads, or, model it on paper.
Awesome, awesome. So, what would you say to a colleague of yours about you can't do, a colleague comes to you and says, Kathy, you can't do this. Students cannot do this at home in their own kitchen. What would your response to them be?
Yes. So one of the major factors that I had considered when thinking about online lab courses, my first thought was, people can't do that. They're not going to get the same information. It's not going to be as rigorous. And what I've actually found is that it really benefits students to be responsible for their own lab from start to finish. I found in face-to-face labs how they tend to rely on each other a little bit more. They come to lab unprepared because a lab mate will have read some of it, and they don't do everything themselves. They set each member of the lab group a task, which is a good way of learning, but they know one small part of that lab when it was meant to be taken as a whole. And so when a student does it on their own at home, they come prepared because they're responsible for the whole lab themselves. They have to have a plan. They've set aside time to do this lab, and they have to read it beforehand, and then they do the whole thing themselves. If they have questions, as an instructor, I'm going to be available. I have online office hours, or they can email me. But they tend to get a better, more rounded view of it by doing it themselves.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And so would it be fair to say that you also might say that for faculty members just diving into this, if you'd like to pilot it and try, do a hybrid of it if you need to have a taste of it, choose a couple of investigations that your online students actually will do at home, and it's the rest of them are coming in. Have you seen that model?
I've seen some just want a couple of investigations at a time. I've also seen some test out the kits in a classroom. So they pilot a kit, but it's in a face-to-face class, just seeing how it works with a group of students, or if they have student employees, student work, they can pilot it for them.
Okay, excellent. Well, why don't we just take a moment, since we're at this point, for you to share one of the kits that you actually used within one of your courses.
Yes, so this is actually part of one of my kits for Bio 111. And I actually have the selected labs that are just some of my favorite labs up here. So the first thing to point out right here is the safety set. That's a given with every lab kit. I know that safety is a concern. These labs have been tested, they're safe. Every single lab manual that you get will also have the safety equipment, how to dispose of any chemicals, if chemicals are used in the lab. But all the PPE comes right here in a package, and there's actually a laboratory safety manual that students can go through, and you can ask questions about it. And so there are supplementary materials that Carolina will also give you with that. Once that, so I have, even though my degrees are marine biology, I have a very strong biochemistry background, so I might tend to skew toward a lot of hands-on things for more on the chemical side of biology. So I always have the macromolecules and enzymes lab, and it comes, and that's a common lab that people will do in a face-to-face lab as well. It comes with everything. So it's got a couple of enzymes for digesting starch and proteins. It has protein powder, albumin powder. It's got, what else do we have here? Some starch, but it's got all of the testing materials right there provided to the students. It basically comes in a box to their house, and it has everything they need to perform the experiment. So, if they need a small amount of a reagent, it comes packaged like this. It's double bagged, so to avoid any accidents in case it's, in case the post office drops the box. And then some things that the students need to reconstitute, and there are instructions for that in the lab kit. But I like that lab.
So along with just the actual content, can you talk a little bit further about the instructor? You touched on it a little bit, but we go a little deeper into what is the supplemental materials for the instructor?
Yeah. Well, so the way I use them, at least, and I know different people will have different ways that they like to do that. There is a file that contains questions, and the questions in that file they're sort of like pre-lab questions to make sure the student has read the manual and understands the material. They can be uploaded into an LMS. They can just be given to students like it would be best if you knew the answers to these questions, or it can be done like we used Moodle where I was teaching, and I would just upload it to Moodle and set it so that students needed to complete it with a grade of 70 before they could actually answer anything regarding the lab. So then I would have a lab manual. There's also sort of additional supplementary material. Well, actually, there's a lab manual template. I glossed over the lab manual. There's a lab manual template. It's a Word document. So if you like something in it, or if you would like to see something else in it, you can add that. If you want to take part of it out, you could take that one thing out. Add little reminders for students or things like that. And so they will have a template to follow for the lab that you want them to write up for it. After that, there's another file that you are given that has just the supplementary materials, ideas for discussions, ideas for supplementary or links to supplementary videos that students can watch before or during or after the lab. But the discussion forums are very helpful so that you do get some kind of interactive forum or interaction with the students to make sure that they will actually interact with you about the lab. Because that's one thing. I like to force my students to interact with me, and that's face-to-face or online. Sometimes you just have to force students to interact.
Sure, and that's what this is all about the
Yes.
students. And that's a great segue into how do your students actually, we're talking about all these wonderful opportunities about designing the kit. And one other thing in terms of engagement for faculty, certainly they can always pick up the phone and call you
Yes.
if there's a question.
Definitely.
So there's always access to our distance learning specialist if a faculty member just is really stuck on something as they actually get started. So that's
and since the distance learning specialists here have taught before, we know that not everyone, for example, is going to be comfortable with photosynthesis. If you have even a technical question about the lab, or you're not even sure what the pedagogy behind part of it is, you can call or email.
Absolutely. And along the lines of that, students also have access to a very robust customer service line, which they can certainly call or email as well. Let's say their box arrives, something's missing, something's broken. They can immediately let us know, and we'll certainly take care of any customer service needs that they have as well.
Or if they just can't find it. It may very well be in their lab kit, and they're just not sure what they're looking for, which is more common, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've never had a problem with my students. Granted, we cap every class at about 25,
Okay.
but I've never experienced a problem with something actually not being there. They may not have noticed it, but it's
Sure.
in there. They just didn't know where it was.
Sure, and I think here at Carolina Biological, we do an amazing job in terms of the packaging, the actual packaging of the investigations themselves, and also include a packing list for the students to sort of do a double check. So it is helpful when the student receives that package, that they know exactly what's in there, for sure. Along those lines, the faculty member develops the kit, and then we here at Carolina Distance Learning, we don't want you to have to worry as a faculty member about the logistics of the rest of it. It is one of the most amazing things to me, at least, about this company is the infrastructure that we have, right? Starting with a phone call with a faculty member and then actually having the kit arrive at the student's doorstep. I think we have that down. We have an international shipping department. We have a whole manufacturing facility that puts the kits together and actually ships it out to the students. And again, the customer service piece of that, if we do set up a customized website for the students to actually do their ordering, they can fill their information in, and the investigations and the kit is shipped to the student's house. We work very closely with institutions in terms of working with their bookstores if we need to. If we have students that are on financial aid, they can order through a voucher system. I think an important point to make, though, is that we certainly do recognize the pocketbooks of a student, the budgets of science departments. Certainly want to keep that in the forefront of our minds as well as we're developing these kits for students.
Yeah, and something to note, in terms of logistics and students and knowing what to tell your students, we can provide wording that you can just add to a syllabus or add as a file on your LMS. You know, this is how you tell students to get the lab kit. You know, they can click on this link and it's going to take them to a website that is just their lab kit, or they can, if you choose, go to the bookstore, buy a voucher, then go to the voucher redemption page for Carolina Distance Learning and enter the number of their voucher. Regardless, it's going to get shipped directly to the student's house.
Okay, I think we've touched on quite a bit. We've done a lot of talking, so would you like to open it up for some questions?
Yes.
Before we actually take any questions that I'm seeing, lots of really great ones coming up on the chat. We did have a question that came in last night, so I would like to definitely recognize that question and go ahead. I'm going to just say it out loud and we'll go ahead and answer it. So how do you document students are doing labs and not simply Googling YouTube videos to see the lab outcomes?
So what I do in my labs is, depending on the lab, I will either have them use the lab report template and upload pictures to it. So it would be for example, a selfie of them with the lab set up and a very clear picture of the results from their lab. Along with, you know, either they have to be in the picture or a little note card that says the date and the time. I think that most students don't timestamp stuff, or they're not quite sure about that. So I just do easy note card, write the date, write the time, and then I'll see the same note card later on, and the time is scratched out initially, and then there's another time there. And then I also, for some labs, just have them do a video of themselves that they have to upload. I like to cap the video at about 4 minutes because I don't really want a lot of wordy students. I want them to be focused and know exactly what they're going to say. I will have, if it's a dissection, there can be a list of things that they need to show me. So if it's a fetal pig or something like that, they actually need to very quickly, in 4 minutes, show me the different things that I want them to show me, or, you know, describe the results of an experiment using pieces of the experiment. And for them to be able to tell me that on video means that they have to know the material. They're going to show me the end results, or, you know, the animal that they've opened up and showing me what they've done. So they have to know the material. You know, I can't help if they've looked up a video beforehand to know what they're doing, but by the end of that lab, they are going to know that lab. And a lot of them like uploading YouTube videos, and they can also then use it as a portfolio. So if they're going on to apply to medical school, or to get credit for what they've done at a 4-year university, if they decide to take A&P there, they can say, hey, you know, I've got a portfolio. For example, here's a video I did that shows that I do know how to dissect this, even though it's an online course.
Yes, that's excellent. Good point. Okay, I see another question coming in regarding safety. We touched a tiny bit on safety, but it is absolutely in the forefront of many of our faculty that we speak with, their minds. So the question is, safety is a big concern of mine. What measures are in place if an accident does occur?
Well, first, there's a laboratory safety manual. So the first thing, just prevent the accident. There's a lab safety manual. There is PPE for the labs, and it's very clearly stated in each lab what needs to be done. If there are any safety concerns in a lab, it mentions it right after the materials. Here's what you need to look out for. Here's how you're going to dispose of any chemicals. Here's the PPE that you need to wear. And then they'll also have the laboratory safety manual that I recommend be the first thing that they go through. But the labs have been tested. They are as safe as using kitchen equipment. So, you know, people may worry about a scalpel, but you usually have knives in your kitchen that are a lot larger than, at least in my kitchen, a lot larger than a scalpel. The chemicals are small quantities because it's just enough chemical for one student. And if it's with an investigation, for that investigation and a little extra in case they need to rerun it. So it's not large quantities of anything dangerous. And again, it's not, the chemicals are no more dangerous than you would find in household cleaning equipment. There are instructions, you know, what to do, like if this occurs, rinse under cold running water. We have SDS for everything that's available online. So we have QR codes on each of these, and that can link you to our site and different, where you can find the different SDFs.
So we have quite a few precautions in place, definitely. I would also say at a higher level that when folks engage with us and they are using our IP and following our instructions, certainly the liability would at that point fall with us. So, and that is part of what you get when you actually decide to work with us. So I see another question coming in about rigor. That is something that comes up. I know when I speak with folks as well, how in the world could this possibly be the same as the residential experience in terms of college level rigor? Do you have any comments on that?
Yes, so we write these. The people who have written these have all taught at the college level before. We know the rigor that we would want our students to have, and that's the rigor that we would put into these. And again, students have to know their stuff to get through these labs, to fill out the lab report, and to provide picture proof that they've done the labs. So.
Well, we don't want to take too much more time. We wanted to give you an overview of what happens here at Carolina, also introduce you to our newest team member, which we're so excited to have her with us. In closing, I did want to talk a little bit just briefly about if you'd like to take any next steps with us. We do find many folks that we talk with would like to actually try it out themselves. So if there's a sample that you might like to try that you would use in an online course, we would be happy to send you a sample. Also, if you're currently using a kit, you may be using a kit with another provider, we would be more than happy to do a price comparison for you as well. We also offer workshops. We can do them online like we're doing right now. We'd be glad to come to your campus and address a faculty meeting, but certainly available to conduct a workshop for you so that if you have a team that wants to get their hands wet, if you will, we'd be glad to bring investigations with us and talk you through how our process works.
Professional development.
Yep, and some professional development opportunities. We'd be glad to participate in that as well. And then, as Kathy mentioned earlier, you know, even starting the process, if you want to send us a syllabus just to get an idea of what a course might look like using some of our kits, we would be glad to send recommendations about how we would set up a course from your syllabus and your learning outcomes. So several ways to engage with us as you're exploring, or if you are currently doing this with maybe you're using a different kit. So be glad to help in any way that we can. We really appreciate you participating with us today, and certainly be in touch if there's anything else that we can do. Thank you.